Hello everyone, welcome to October. Today we're discussing resumes, CVs, and the differences and similarities between the two. About cover letters and LinkedIn. So this is a lot, so I can already tell that this video is going to be longer even though I'm only 20 seconds in. So bear with me, we'll try to cover this information quickly. I would say for resumes and CVs, since I will have you submit a resume a resume or a CV as an assignment, I would advise you to have a version of your own in front of you so you can make notes. It's going to make your job a lot easier later on if you can actually make notes as you're watching the video. So that's my recommendation there. Keep in mind that assignment is due later on in the month. I'm not going to quote the date here in case I change my mind, but it'll be updated on the syllabus and on Blue Line by the time that you're watching this video. The cover letter, it's not going to be an assignment, however, it is really nice to have that prepared. You're going to have to write a lot of cover letters, so in case this is information that you really haven't written a lot of cover letters before, hopefully good information. LinkedIn is going to be an assignment due at the same time as a resume. A lot of this will overlap as far as the content, but I'll give you some pointers for LinkedIn and show you access to where you can get some resources. So let's dive in all. Okay, already discussed the agenda. Forward. Resume versus a CV. When would you use a resume? When would you use a CV? The resume is used in most jobs or industries. The CV is mostly academic. Not that there can be an exception to that rule, but most of the time I would think if I'm applying to a graduate program, maybe a master's or a PhD, I might be asked to write a CV. If I'm applying to a job or an opportunity after my graduate program, I'm likely going to be using a resume. Now, England uses these differently, so if you see information on resume and it looks like CV stuff or vice versa, that's because you're looking at a UK page. So keep that in mind too, just to make things extra confusing. Different countries use these words differently. Thinking about a resume, that is typically 1 to 2 pages. What I would say, employers back this up, is that you absolutely can have a resume that's 1.5 pages. However, it looks sharper to have a resume that's 1 full page or 2 full pages. When I have pause, why do you think that might be? The reason, or one of the reasons that it looks like it's a little bit better if you have 1 to 2 full pages is that blank space looks like a lack of experience. Typically, industries will say 1 full page for every 10 years of experience. That would mean most of you would have 1 full page on your resume. If you have 2 full pages and you make it look beautiful, fine, great. And I will not dock for anyone who has 1.5 pages, but I'm giving you that information. Resume should be tailored. And that's the same with the CV too. CV should be tailored. That means that you've looked at that job description or that grad program and the experiences that you're relaying or trying to convey to the employer are similar to that job or to that grad program. So if I know that I'm going to be counseling, or if I know that I'm going to be modeling behavior, or if I know that I'm going to be doing research, the types of skills associated with those tasks are what I want to make sure that I'm writing in my descriptions of my past experiences. And then let's see. In the resume, you're going to have a summary of relevant job experience and education. The CV includes all experience, and that is ultimately the biggest difference. Is where I'm telling you a resume, 1 to 2 pages. CV, what I would anticipate for you, I don't know who's listening to this, but you're probably a sophomore, a junior, maybe you're a senior. You probably don't have enough experience to really get past 2 pages. Certainly you might, but let's say 10 years down the road, you're writing a CV. That could be a 5-page document. So a CV grows with time. Your CV and your resume at this stage in your life probably look almost identical. We don't have a lot of experience or time to make them look drastically different. If that's not clear, let me know if you have any questions about the difference between these two things. So as far as the similarities, there's not a right or wrong format with a CV or resume, although there are optimal organization pieces, which I'll cover in the next couple slides. We want it to be easy to read. We don't want to make the reader do a lot of work. That's a great way to have them pass on your resume and go to the next person if it's going to take them a lot of work to figure out what your job duties were or where these jobs were. We want relevant content. We don't want to use a template. Now I see a lot of templates from students, and I get why. I mean, it's nice to have a base, right? It's nice to start somewhere. 2 things, especially with Word templates, that's where I'm talking about, is that Word can be really difficult to format in. So even if your resume looks really nice today in that Word template, try updating it in a few months, and you're probably going to have some things bolding out of nowhere, or it's not going to let you add an extra line. Those templates can be really difficult. Also, I can tell what the top couple templates are that Word offers because I see the most of those from students. So if you're trying to make yourself stand out, you don't necessarily want to use a template. Avoid empty space, we kind of discussed that already. And consistency throughout, and y'all, I'm really picky. I'll see some comments that are bolded and some comments that aren't, and I'm picking that out. If I'm looking at date ranges, I might see some hyphens that have spaces on either side and some don't. I'm going to pick that out. I'm looking for, if you're bolding locations in your education entry, why aren't you bolding locations in your experience? Consistency shows that you have attention to detail, and there isn't really a job that doesn't encourage attention to detail. So really nice to emphasize that professionalism with consistency. Organization options, if you have that resume in front of you, great. The most common categories would be, if you have an objective, that would be on top. Objectives are going out of fashion, so you can have one or you can not have one. They're a brief line describing your interest in the position or the types of positions or graduate programs that you're applying to. Education, though, you all should have education, and it should be at the top of your resume. You'll see templates online that have education at the bottom, but that is for people who are more experienced in their work. So I would expect maybe 5 years out of your grad program, or 5 years out of your bachelor's if you're going straight into work. Then the education section might go to the bottom because your experiences are the most interesting to a next employer. But right now, it's education, so right on top. You should have experience if you've had both experience that's related to the types of jobs and programs you're applying for and experience that isn't. I would have those broken up to related experience and then additional experience. Highlight the most relevant always to that employer. You might have a service or volunteer section. You could have an honors or an activities section. Licensure, I would anticipate you don't have licensure yet, although that's kind of a flash forward if you're in psychology. Very much likely that would be a category in the future. You could have a skills section. That could be technology skills. That could be maybe a knowledge of assessments if you're a senior. Or you could absolutely, looking at the additional categories, have a research sections. For some of you, that's going to be more important depending on where you're interested in. If you've attended conferences, that's great. So after I've said additional experience, that's where it really opens up. And there's not one particular order that you need to follow. It's more what's relevant to you and what are you trying to showcase. Looking at that contact information, just making sure that your name is bigger or bolded or something. I don't like it when it's the same text and font as all the body information. I just get lost and I don't see who you are. We want only one email, only one phone number. Don't want to confuse them. It looks nice if you can use your first name, last name at creighton.edu email as opposed to a NetID, which just looks a little bit uglier, is harder to remember. For some of you who are living in Omaha now but go other places during the summer, and maybe if you're looking at internships or jobs, you're not sure where you're going to be looking for, you can do what Meredith Sladkey does at the bottom, and you have a permanent address and a current address, because by and large employers prefer to see an address in the place that the person's applying to. So if I'm an Omaha employer and I see you have a Kansas address, I'm a little confused as to why you're applying to my position. So you can eliminate that confusion with your address at the top. Education, by and large, education sections I see are pretty good, but the things that I see that I most frequently tweak on resumes would be that students don't write out their degree title. So sometimes I see just BA. I would recommend writing that out, Bachelor of Arts, if you have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. If you're not a psychology major or you're not sure, maybe it's a Bachelor of Science in something else. It's not a Bachelor of Arts in Science. I see that sometimes. It would just be a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science, depending on the degree that you have. And then typically you don't put a range for your education. It would just be the month and the year that you graduated. And the most recent should be on top. So if we look at that middle example, the Spalding Catholic High School is below Creighton University. So Creighton University most recent, it's on the top. If you're a sophomore, still have high school on your resume. If you have space for it, great. If you're a junior or senior, I would have that high school removed unless you're applying for a position at that high school and you want to show that you're an alum. And then I do have a suggestion for how to do your education abroad experience there as well. All right, then thinking about experience or related experience, and what I like about calling this section experience as opposed to work, or like work experience, is that experience doesn't have to be paid. It just opens it up, so if it's something that's a service or maybe a leadership position from a club, that all counts. If you're using skills that are relevant to the position or program that you're applying for, that's experience, and you should absolutely include it. And then similar to education, experience will be in reverse chronological order. So the most recent experience will always be at the top. So if you're doing something currently, it needs to be at the top of the section. That's why it's nice to have an additional experience section, meaning that if I'm working at Chipotle, but over the summer I had this great behavioral tech position that I want to highlight because maybe applying to some sort of counseling organization, and I really want to showcase that I've worked with students and modeled correct behavior before. I don't want the most recent experience they see to be Chipotle because that's not as relevant. So switch it up, have a related experience section first in my resume where I highlight that behavioral tech experience, and then below that I have an additional experience section where I can showcase that I'm currently working at Chipotle. So as far as items to include in the experience section, every experience section should have the name of the organization that you worked for, the location that it was in, the title of your position, and the date range that you worked there. And then also have bulleted descriptions of your duties and responsibilities within that position. Typically, and what I will be looking for in the assignment is that your bullets lead with a strong action verb. So we see here, ensured, received, safely, they didn't do that right. We have enforced, performed, administered. That gives me an idea as an employer, the types of skills that you have. I would assume that the person who has written these descriptions has experience in compliance, in navigating rules and regulations, in overseeing groups of people or situations, and also that they're calm under pressure. So if these are the skills that I'm hoping to relate to an employer, great, right? I'm doing that well. And you'll see that in resumes online sometimes that there are paragraphs instead of bullets. That's hard for someone who's entering into the workforce to pull off. You're asking more of the reader to read a paragraph as opposed to these bullets, and you don't have the experience yet to make them read more. So if you love that paragraph style, wait until you're further in your career and you totally have the credence to do that. But for this assignment, I'm going to have you write things in a bulleted form. This is saying a lot of what I already said. No periods, and I'm not going to be harsh on that. So if you really want to add periods, you got to do it, fine, but then just be consistent. You have to add periods to all of your bullets. Use terms related to your field. A great way to do that is to look up a job description. So let's look at a job description. So here we're looking at a early childhood specialist at the Child Saving Institute. That's by University of Nebraska Medical Center. They're looking for someone who's energetic, nurturing, likes working with children, the ability to teach, coordinate activities, supervise, engage, facilitate, communicate. We're looking at all these verbs and we're thinking, have I done similar types of roles in previous positions? Can I highlight similar skills? We're going to use that as fodder not only for our resume or CV, but then also for our cover letter or personal statement, potentially also for our LinkedIn if we feel like tailoring that as well. All right, back to the slide. Also keeping an eye out for verb tense. So looking at this person here, these were all past tense jobs, so they ensured, received, transported, etc. But I would anticipate if this person was currently in this role, they would ensure safety, receive incoming animals, safely transport children. So look for that in your resume to make sure you're consistent with verb tense. And then additional experience examples. You can format it differently depending on what your space looks like on your resume. So if you had more room, you could do this additional experience with descriptions, or if you're really running out of space, you could do the additional experience just kind of with lines and briefly run through what you've done. And if you don't have any room for your additional experience section, you have a lot of relevant experience, that's fine. You can remove it. And then other sections, examples, there are just tons of ways that you could format your different sections on these slides. I just have a beginning of an example. Quickly, I know we're doing a lot of mini field trips in this lecture. I'm going to get out of here. Let's go to creighton.edu/career center. Click on the Students tab, Resume and Career Correspondence. Here I have a variety of examples that I could click on and see how people are formatting different sections. I also, though, have a resume and cover letter guide. A lot of the information I'm giving you, you can also read this, get this information in a similar fashion, but ultimately there are going to be lots of examples that you can use, as well as different verbs, suggestions. So I would have you look through this if you're struggling with how to format different areas. Overall formatting, coming back to the assignment at hand, I would want 0.5 margins, font size 10 to 12. You want it to be readable in a common type. I don't want any, well, certainly not Windings, but also probably not a Comic Sans or something really bold. Consistent spacing, single-spaced when you're writing the body information, so when you're writing your descriptions of experience, that should be single space. Nice to use bold or italics or underline or some combination to help organize your resume. And then we already talked about high school information. Sophomores, you have a pass. And we already looked at these, but you can also link to them in the video. Okay, that was resumes. Ready for cover letters? If not, pause and come back. But we're discussing cover letters. Okay, so in essence, a cover letter is expressing your interest and qualification for a particular position. It's personal, but professional, so you are trying to show a little bit of your personality. It should be tailored to the position, so that same job description we looked at, making sure we're thinking of that when we're writing the cover letter as well. It explains how you fit with the organization and how you will help them. It also expands main points from your resume, and that's, thinking back to that example I used over the summer. I was behavioral health tech, and that was a really pivotal experience for me. I want to showcase that and show what I learned and how those skills will help me in this next position that I'm applying for. Here is the general format. The website I showed you earlier for resumes also has cover letter examples, so I won't go in too much detail here, but in general, you'll have 3 paragraphs. That's typical. You can be atypical. I accept it. I support it even. But in general, 3 paragraphs, that's an easy way to start if you haven't written a cover letter before. Oh, is that all I wrote about it? Well, let me go back. So knowing now that I don't have any other slides on cover letter, I'll say in brief that the first paragraph is typically a way that you're introducing who you are, maybe how you learned about the position, and then you're giving a highlight about why you applied to that organization. So helping that person reading the cover believe that you didn't apply to this position at random because you're just desperate for a job you'd apply anywhere, but you thoughtfully went and I want to work for Emmanuel Hospital because I really care about their mission and their interest in holistically caring for each patient, or whatever it is that you believe for that organization, and then also giving them a highlight in that first paragraph about why you would be a good fit. The second paragraph is usually the longest, and that's going to deeper dive, again connecting back to those job descriptions, how the skills you've had in the past or the job experiences or the service experiences connect to this position and how they've helped prepare you to succeed. And in the conclusion, you can kind of see it here. It's usually really brief, thanking them for reading the cover letter or for looking at your application, and then expressing interest in learning about the next steps in the interview process. Okay, but there is more information. If you want to learn more about cover letters, this is not an assignment for the course. This is just a nice to know. We'll talk about personal statements a bit more in the next lecture when we talk about grad programs. So if you're like, hey, I won't be doing cover letters as much, but I've got this grad program I'm applying to, we got you. We'll talk about it next week. All right, LinkedIn. Guys, it's the last portion of the lecture. I am feeling it. I'm feeling that this is long. We got it. So LinkedIn, it's been around longer than we think. It's been around since 2003, which seems in 2018 a little bit nuts. Longest, well maybe, but also largest professional network. 40% of users use LinkedIn daily. So of the people that use it, 40% are using it pretty frequently. So as far as why would you use LinkedIn, I thought people were going to respond to this. Let's skip ahead. It helps you network with other professionals, and that would be the biggest reason. I have certainly seen, as working for a number of higher education institutions, when I've been through processes where I'm interviewing others, people on my interview team always want to see the LinkedIn page to see how professional they are and how they present themselves. And they use that as a key tool to determine if they want that person in their organization. There are a lot of other tools or uses for LinkedIn, though. You can use it to connect with different organizations, and you can use it to ask questions of recruiters. You can use it to search for jobs. So beyond networking, there are other tools, but the networking is by far the most popular tool. I will also say, real quick, I'm going to do a field trip. Okay, so I'm going to show you another reason I really liked LinkedIn. If you have an account, you can do linkedin.com/alumni, and you can pull up Creighton's alumni who are connected to LinkedIn, and you can see where they live, where they work, what they do. You can also see what they majored in, so if I want to see what do Creighton psychology alums do? I can do that. So I can see where they live, I can see where they work, I can see what they're doing within those organizations. I can also scroll down and see who they are. And if your colleagues or like classmates are on LinkedIn, they're probably showing up in here as well, which is fun. And if you wanted a contact information, you could connect with the Career Center. We could help you network with any of these people. So that's partly how you can use LinkedIn. I'm jumping to my account so I can show you some of the elements here that'll be important for your assignment, because your assignment is to either upload the link to your existing LinkedIn account, which if you already have one and it's updated, great, this assignment will be a breeze. But if you don't have one, then your assignment is to create a LinkedIn account and then upload the URL. So in essence, some of the things that you would look for, and what I'm going to be looking for, is that you have a informative profile headline giving a little bit of information of who you are and maybe the types of opportunities you're seeking. So this would almost be like a mini elevator pitch here in the headline. Pick an appropriate photo. I wouldn't want to see, of course I wouldn't want to see a partying picture, but I also wouldn't want to see a picture of a puppy. I want a picture of you in nice attire, pretty basic. Show off your education. I am doing what I told you not to do because I am a professional who's been in the field for a few years. So I am exercising some of those pieces where I have experience listed first and then I have paragraph style. However, I would have your education section be above your experience, similar to your resume, and I would take a lot of the information from your resume and transfer it over to your LinkedIn if this is brand new, because you shouldn't have to rewrite that. What works for your resume for descriptions should work great for LinkedIn. Notice also that there is a skills and endorsement section down here. Just as someone who has not updated this throughout their career, I would advise starting this early on so people can endorse you and it looks more impressive as you enter your professional life or as you enter graduate school. You can be creative with the types of skills you have, and certainly if you friend me, I can endorse you for any skills that I witness that you have throughout your Creighton career. Happy to do that. Last note on LinkedIn, check spelling and grammar. I mean, same with resume, right? Happy to look over for you, and once you upload your URLs, I will be looking through those LinkedIn. If I see any spelling or grammar mistakes, I'll let you know. One last thing with this LinkedIn. Scrolling up. This is where you can edit public and URL. So if you want to personalize your URL, you can. So it doesn't have to be that big long thing. That'll make it easier for the assignment if you want to play with that. All right, all last slides. Just for networking on LinkedIn, I have some language here. In this PowerPoint, of course, will be on blue line for how to reach out to someone who you've never met with before. We have another presentation on networking, so I'm not going to dive in deep. But nice to have sometimes language to start that conversation, because it can be kind of awkward to reach out to someone you've never met before and ask maybe for an informational interview or to ask about opportunities, whatever it may be. So got some language here, and then there's other information and suggestions on this resource here that connects you back to the career page. So that's all I've got. I recognize that this was long. You're all wonderful for sticking with me. I'm curious how many breaks you had to take. So in the weekly analysis, if you want a fun aside, let me know how many iterations it took you to get through this video, if it was all in one shot or if you had to take 5 breaks or whatever it is. Again, the resume and LinkedIn URL assignment will be due later this month. All of those specific details will be on the blue line page. I hope you're all doing well. The career fair is this week, which is really exciting. It's on October 5th. I will certainly be there. Give me a shout out and give me a face for the names that I'm seeing in my blue line page. It would be really nice to have an opportunity to meet you. So know that I'll be there. And then also recognizing that the day that this lecture opens, October 2nd, is the day that the reflection number 1 is due. I'm sure Blue Line has been showing you that, but just keeping that in mind, if you're getting to the end of this lecture and you haven't handed that in, then you might be late. So hand in that reflection paper. And as always, let me know if you have any questions. I hope you have a fantastic week. Maybe I'll see you at the career fair.